Does God want a separation of church and state? Should Christians be voting biblical principles? Does it really matter who you vote for? Join Pastor Jerry Cook as he endeavors to answer these and many other questions over the next hour on Politics in the Pulpit. And now, Pastor Jerry Cook.
Good afternoon and welcome to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station. This is your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook. Good to have you in for another Wednesday soiree with politics and pulpit information. We've got a great show on tap for you today. In just a little bit, we're going to have a call-in from Deborah Pauly, who is a attorney with Lex Rex Institute. And we're going to talk about the supposed 6 co-conspirators that will potentially be charged along with former President Donald Trump. And so it is very possible that Deborah Pauly is representing one of the 6 co-conspirators yet to be outed. So we will get to her in just a few minutes. Many of you are probably thinking of back-to-school plans. Obviously, we are already now in the first full week of August, and many of your kids are already back to school. Some of you homeschool, which is a wonderful thing. Some of you have kids in private school. But if you're still thinking about sending your children to a private school where we will educate, not indoctrinate, I would encourage you to give Lighthouse Preschool Academy a call and give Christine Aragon a ring, if you would. You can find information for Lighthouse Preschool Academy on our website, freedomswaybaptistchurch.com, and we do pre-K, kindergarten, and we'd encourage you to get a hold as quickly as possible, considering we are so close to the school year for many of our kids, if not already. Well, just an hour or so ago, I saw breaking news from the state of Utah. And it seems to me, at least from my initial perspective, that the FBI is perhaps in rehabilitation mode. Now, why in the world would I say that? Well, hattiptownhall.com, a Utah man who allegedly made credible threats against President Joe Biden is fatally shot by FBI during raid. Now, this all happened this morning. Evidently, the raid took place at 6:15 a.m., and they were serving a warrant, and we're going to end up searching this guy's place. But the news story from Town Hall is pretty sparse on details as to how it escalated from just searching the place to end up killing this man. And as of right now, his name is not mentioned, at least in this article. Perhaps it is by now. But again, Utah man who allegedly made credible threats to the president and other political officials is shot dead by the FBI during raid this morning. Now, in years gone by, I probably would have not given this particular story much time, because obviously we trust the FBI. We want the FBI to do what is right, and we definitely want all of our politicians in public office safe and secure for whichever party they represent, Democrat or Republican, male or female. We want them safe. But it is interesting, considering how the FBI has been in the spotlight in a negative light over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, specifically as it relates to the FBI, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, and some of the things that he has publicly said during congressional hearing that we'll get to in just a second, just leaves me a little suspicious that all of a sudden we have a raid of a man in Utah who has made supposedly credible threats to the president and other elected officials, ends up fatally getting shot dead. And of course there are, again, no other reports coming out as of right now as to what escalated that situation to where the FBI would have to, come in there and guns a-blazing. Now, the reason why I say all this is because there is a cloud over the FBI, and I don't want it to be there. I don't think anybody wants it to be there, but unfortunately, it is. And so here we are speculating whether the FBI is actually trying to rehab its image. Also breaking news today in reference to the FBI. If you remember a few weeks ago, Christopher Wray had previously testified that the institution of the FBI had been taken by a single office, not multiple offices. Now you say, what do you mean by that? They were blaming the FBI for targeting Catholics as domestic terrorists. And Christopher Wray had previously testified that the action had been taken by a single office. This was congressional testimony a few weeks ago. Well, breaking news today, multiple FBI field offices targeting Catholics as, quote, domestic terrorist. And of course, these are traditional Catholics, by the way. These are not your, your woke Catholics and the guys that are scared of everything in their shadow. But these are traditional Latin observing, probably pre-Vatican II Catholics. And now the Portland office and the LA field offices have both been implicated as to targeting Catholics as domestic terrorists. Now, folks, I'm not a Catholic, but I'm also for freedom of religion. And if a Catholic wants to worship and serve in the capacity here in the United States of America, I think they have the right to do that. And I don't think the Catholics or any other religious group out there, unless of course they're some Satanist group, I don't think they should be targeted as domestic terrorists. And that leads us, of course, to our topic for today, which is what's going on with these 6 co-conspirators that are yet to be named in the Jack Smith indictments against President Donald J. Trump. On the line this afternoon, we have Deborah Pauly. Deborah Pauly is a staff attorney with the Lex Rex Institute. She is a founding board member and current president of the Conservative Patriots of Orange County, which is an autonomous, nonpartisan 527 political not-for-profit dedicated to individual liberty, limited government, local control, sound fiscal policy, and free enterprise. Deborah has also served 2 4-year terms as an elected council member for the city of Villa Park, providing oversight and setting policy that led to greater fiscal stability for that municipality. She is also a graduate of the Defense Information School and was honorably discharged after serving active duty as a non-commissioned officer public affairs specialist in the United States Air Force. Deborah Pauly, welcome to the Politics in the Pulpit. Say hello.
Hello, Pastor Cook. I'm so glad to be with you. I understand congratulations are in order. You've been on the air just a little over a year now.
I have, and it's great to welcome you today on the show, a common sense voice of reason, right?
Well, common sense is now it's a superpower. It didn't used to be that way. I'm of an age where there used to be a lot of it, but I'm really glad to see that you're talking about an issue that's really important right now as we're heading into the election cycle.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm sure you perhaps heard some of the lead-in stories here, but I don't know if you had the opportunity to see any of the news articles about this FBI raid there in Utah, I think in Provo, where originally the FBI was just simply going in to serve a warrant and ended up killing this guy because he supposedly had some credible threats against Joe Biden, who is supposed to be in Utah today. And this ended up in a man dead. I kind of, with my scenario, the way the last 2 years have been going for the FBI, I kind of think this is a rehab mode here, trying to reinforce the fact this is what the FBI is supposed to do, is protect our public officials. But again, because of the cloud of secrecy and some of the weird things that have been happening in the FBI as of late, especially under former President Trump, I see this more as a rehab mode. What say you?
Well, I don't know a lot about that particular situation that you're discussing. If it is as you present it, someone should not end up dead just because, there is a warrant being served. That's pretty suspicious to me.
It is.
Like to look into more of the facts there. Can you hear me okay? I'm kind of sitting here with my I'm on my cell phone for
I can hear you fine.
Okay?
I can hear you fine,
Okay,
Deborah.
great.
We have on the line Deborah
One.
Pauly, the voice for common sense with the staff attorney with the Lex Rex Institute. Obviously, Lex Rex means the law is
The
king.
law is king.
The law is king, and of course, usually we have Alexander Haberbush with us every first Wednesday of the month, and we go through various things. But it's possible that somebody from the Lex Rex Institute could be, if you will, on this 6 co-conspirator list. This is what I want to talk to you about today, Deborah. Obviously, you are representing, or in lieu of, Alexander today. And there are 6 co-conspirators that supposedly are going to be named, one of which we already know. Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, who we already know, Sidney Powell, Jeffrey Clark, Kenneth Chesborough, and a political consultant, or if you will, co-conspirator number 6. What exactly is going on here, and what is Jack Smith's angle here?
Well, I think most reasonable Americans understand that this indictment, which was filed on August 1st, that's just as we're heading into the height of campaign season, that this is nothing more than a political witch hunt. It's designed to, divert President Trump's good energies away from his campaign for president. I mean, next week we are actually having the Republican presidential nomination debate next week, and he's supposed to be dealing with this indictment. The first thing I think that, and most people know this, but we need to say it because the left is so excited about this happening, an indictment is not a conviction. They're acting as though he's been tried and convicted. He has not been convicted. He's simply been indicted. And you can indict a ham sandwich. I don't know if you've heard that saying before, but that's possible. The prosecution, based on this indictment, they're going to have to prove each and every element of the crime or crimes charged beyond a reasonable doubt. And when one reads this indictment, and I have read a good portion of it, there really is only one charge that they're talking about, and that is conspiracy. A conspiracy comes in 3 flavors in this particular indictment, and then under count 3, there's also obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. Of course, that was the ratification of the election results that occurred on January 6th. That's what they're talking about there. But conspiracy itself, those charges are among the most common in the federal criminal justice system. But there are 4 elements that the prosecutor is going to have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. He's going to have to prove that there was an agreement between at least 2 parties, and that agreement is meant to achieve an illegal goal, that when they sat down, they said, we're going to all agree that we are going to do something illegal. First of all, most attorneys would they would turn from that immediately. You're everything about the law. You know that you're not going to get involved in something that's illegal. But that all the parties alleged to have been involved have to have knowledge of the conspiracy and participate in the conspiracy in some way, and at least one of the persons involved make some overt action to further that conspiracy. Here's the thing. Knowledge is really what it's going to boil down to. Was this with absolute knowledge? And they talk about, when you read the indictment, they're talking about that President Trump knowingly committed these things, knowingly knew that it was false, knowingly was trying to fraudulently overturn the results of the election. When you're looking at the word knowingly in the law, that means to consciously or with knowledge or complete understanding of the facts of the circumstances. And that really is the point of what President Trump was questioning, is that no one at that point had a complete understanding of the facts surrounding the circumstances of that election, the 2020 election. And he wanted to put a hold on things until we had an opportunity to properly investigate and find out whether some of the allegations were or were not true with regard to election irregularities. And so his knowingly, he was not acting with such scienter as to have knowledge of wrongdoing. In fact, I would contend that it's just the opposite. His knowledge was that something doesn't smell right, we need to, in order to protect our country, our form of government, under our Constitution, we need to put a hold on this and be sure that what's being ratified in Congress that day is actually what happened. If not, it's the end of the country.
Yeah. We're speaking to Deborah Pauly, who is staff attorney with the Lex Rex Institute. Why do you think the Jack Smith indictments here, why do you think why do you think they have no problem mentioning Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, Sidney Powell, Jeffrey Clark, Kenneth and Chesbrough, but they refer to the sixth as a political consultant?
I don't know about that, and I think the fact that we have one attorney out there that hasn't been identified is also pretty important. It's an important issue because it has a chilling effect on all attorneys that are engaged in conservative thought processes. You know, attorneys that are maybe representing conservative clients, conservative companies, conservative propositions, conservative political positions. And when you recognize that, yes, Rudy Giuliani, everyone suspects that, but they're not positive that he's co-conspirator number one. He does appear to be the first of the co-conspirators based on previous testimony and other records. And it kind of cites his efforts to overturn the election results in Arizona and Georgia. So everybody kind of believes that it's him. Most people believe that co-conspirator number two appears to be Dr. John Eastman, and he's a lawyer that I actually personally know from down here. He's the former dean of the Fowler School of Law right here in Orange County at Chapman University, and he actually put the Fowler School of Law on the map. So he is one of the top constitutional attorneys, not just in Orange County, not just in California, but in the entire country. So to question, his good advice is a pretty frightening thing. And then, of course, we believe that co-conspirator number three is Sidney Powell. There's a lot of conjecture about who co-conspirator number five might be. And we don't really know. And that right there is a concern because every conservative attorney is kind of put on notice. Hey, you better be worried about that. I haven't heard any reports today that an indictment or charges have been served at the Lex Rex Institute, so I don't know about that. But if you were involved in any fashion giving advice to the President of the United States or working with attorneys that were working with him, that's pretty frightening. That's a pretty frightening thing.
Yeah,
so,
no doubt. And there's no doubt, and it seems like this is a chilling effect that's being perpetrated here. And when we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit, we'll continue with Deborah Pauly for a few more minutes. I want to talk a little bit about exactly what is Jack Smith indicting former President Trump of, and perhaps maybe is it just freedom of speech? So we'll ask Deborah here on the other side of the break. We'll catch you in just a few minutes on Politics and the Pulpit. All right, we're back live here on Politics and the Pulpit with your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook. If you're just joining us, we were joined at the top of the hour with Deborah Pauly, who is a staff attorney with the Lex Rex Institute. And we're talking about the six co-conspirators, Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, Sidney Powell, Jeffrey Clark, Kenneth Chesbrough, and a political consultant, or number six, as the co-conspirators referred to. Obviously, these co-conspirators are described in the indictment as political consultants who helped implement a plan to submit fraudulent slates of presidential electors in order to obstruct the certification proceedings. So essentially what you're saying, Deborah, is Jack Smith and his team have to prove that all of these, including President Trump, all knowingly knew that they lost the election and that they were somehow an attempt to perform some sort of coup here.
Right, perpetrating a fraud. I mean, really, that they were perpetrating a fraud, that there was a criminal conspiracy to overturn the ballot results of the election. And that's really, I don't believe that's really what happened. I believe that they most sincerely think that there were a lot of electional irregularities throughout the country. And I think that many reasonable people on both sides of this issue see it that way as well. there are many people who are like, something wasn't right here, something wasn't right there. In my own backyard in Orange County, we certainly saw a lot of irregularities, not just in 2020, but 2018 and 2016. It's almost as though they were testing a system and then ramped it up to a certain point. What we're really talking about here is we're looking at political speech when we're looking at what the president was engaging in. We're testing the limits of where political speech ends under this new Biden-era justice system. Traditionally, when we're looking at political speech, it is the most precious and protected types of speech contemplated under the First Amendment. And we have a special prosecutor attempting to criminalize political speech by a political opponent of the ruling regime. That's precisely what we have going on here. And for anyone who values the Constitution like we do, the Lex Rex Institute, we're constitutional advocates. The organization that you referred to earlier, CPOC, one of our primary founding tenets is that we support the Constitution as being unique in the history of mankind and worthy. And God, breathed almost. It was inspired by natural law jurisprudence, and the idea of overturning that it's very chilling. It should be very chilling. And this attack on the politics, the political free speech that President Trump was engaged in is probably, that would be the end of our country, the way I see it, if this thing goes forward. You and I spoke for the first time last Wednesday, and I thought you and I were just going to be talking about this indictment that was released on August 1st. And in that period of time, between that period of time and this time that I'm here with you, the prosecutor actually wanted to put a gag order in place on Friday, August 4th. On Friday, August 4th, the special prosecutor wanted to, at close of business. See, that's really interesting, too, because it's a very distasteful tactic that some lawyers use against another to just toy with them. So close of business on Friday. They put a gag order in, and they're going to give President Trump all of the evidence that they have against him earlier. They're going to have to give it to him anyway. Bottom line, they have to give it to him anyway. But they're going to give it to him earlier if he agrees that all the material that they give him will not be released to the public. So basically, they were trying to hamstring him so he doesn't let the public know what really happened to drive the grand jury to even release an indictment in the first place. And that also should concern every American, because these kinds of things need to be done out in the open. That's a really important part of our criminal justice system, is that it is in the open and that you have a jury of your peers. And that's the other thing that I think we probably ought to talk about is the D.C. jury pool. I mean, there's a reason that they filed this in the District of Columbia. I lived outside the D.C. Beltway for a number of years, and that's a very interesting jury pool. I don't know if they're a jury of President Trump's peers or not, but they're 90% Democrats. 90% Democrats.
Yeah, I believe Joe Biden won the District of Columbia by like 96 points.
Well, when I lived in the D.C. area, and that was when President Clinton was elected. When was that? 1992.
Mm-hmm.
That's how old I am. The voters in the District of Columbia actually elected a convicted crackhead as their mayor, and I'm not kidding.
Marion Barry.
Yeah, Marion Barry. Yeah, you know about that. So
I do.
That is the jury pool, and that's going to be a real problem. But we're asking.
Let's say this indictment holds, and Jack Smith is able to successfully prosecute the president on one of these many charges that he put out here the last couple weeks. The way I'm looking at this, at least from a layman, and just the pastor of a church, it would seem to me that this is potentially going to lead to criminalizing the questioning of any election. If I can just give you a quick scenario, in November of 2020, I was looking forward to then President Trump winning the November election. I felt very confident. I think most of the people in my congregation, most of them felt very confident. We had seen these great swelling crowds attending the president's rallies, whereas, a handful were only allowed to attend any of Biden's rallies, if any. And of course, he was hiding Biden, right? That was the basement audition for president in 2020. He just wasn't out in public, and COVID was the main culprit, as they say. And then here I am sitting there watching the election returns, and all of a sudden we hear that Pennsylvania and Wisconsin have stopped counting, and they're not going to count the rest of the night. Now, the fact checkers have got their way around this for some reason, but I was watching it live when this news came through, and I looked at my wife and I said, they're going to cheat. Now, was it wrong for me to feel that way? I mean, unfortunately, as an American, I don't want to feel that way. I never want to feel that way. But I just felt like there was something rotten in Denmark. What do you say, Deborah Pauly?
You are not alone. I would say that. I know a lot of people that I've spoken with felt exactly the same way, and more so as things have gone on. And it has nothing to do with anything that President Trump has said or not said. I think part of his popularity is that he's saying what people are thinking. That's really what that boils down to. I think that we are this is my personal opinion. I'm not speaking for Lex Rex when I talk about the fact that I believe our country is at a real serious crossroads right now. And if this is allowed to go forward, it'll be the first time that I can think of in my lifetime, and I'm no spring chicken, that we've had someone of such a high office, the office of our presidency, being prosecuted for his political position, his political speech, and for questioning it. Not only did President Trump have the right to that political speech and to advocate for that particular position or any other position for that matter, and to take action based on that or to petition based on that political position, he also had the right to ask those in his administration to take action based on that position and his concerns. He took an oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I believe he was taking that oath very seriously. He had a right, for instance, to ask the vice president to pause the certification of the election until some point some of the questions about the results in specific states or irregularities could be investigated and answered. And as I said earlier, to date, that has not fully happened. We may never know what the true results of the election were because that process was prevented from going forward. And that's what's causing a lot of people concern. When you start doing things under the cover of darkness, that causes people not to trust the process. And we need to be able to trust our process because it's done in the open. I do not believe that there was any deceit or trickery on behalf of the president. President Trump was acting under advice of counsel, good advice. The attorneys that were advising him were doing exactly what attorneys do. The client, whoever that client is, presents their issues, their matters, their problem, and it almost always is a problem. People don't visit an attorney or ask to speak to an attorney unless they've got an issue. But the attorney provides them with their legal options. Here are your legal options to address the issues you presented to me. Give the pros, the cons, their best professional opinion, and then the client decides that best course of action. It's proper for him to be acting under the advice of counsel. Acting under the advice of counsel is not a criminal offense. Questioning the results of the election in a public way when you are a public figure of that high level is not a criminal offense. Providing legal counsel to the president is not a conspiracy. In fact, those are attorney-client discussions. Those are privileged discussions, and I believe doubly so when we are discussing political questions presented by the President of the United States. These are serious matters. If this is allowed, this will go forward because the judge is, back to the gag order that was filed literally that Friday, close of business Friday. They were required, Trump's legal team was required to respond by 5 o'clock on Monday. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And they asked for an extension and were denied that, even though the rules of the court would provide for at least 2 weeks, 14 days. So everything is being stacked against him, and that concerns me too. We need to be able to rely on Lex Rex. We need to be able to rely that the law is king in this country. And if this goes forward the way it's going right now, I question whether or not we can even survive as a country.
No, I agree with you. In fact, there are some dire consequences if this thing does go through the way Jack Smith wants it to go through it, as well as the Biden DOJ. Let me ask you, the Democrats, I think, have and I'm just going to ask you to put your political hat on for just a moment here, not to suggest you've taken it off here, but the Democrats have got a playbook here that they're attempting to play, and they think it's a successful playbook, which is essentially throw everything at Donald Trump with all of these indictments, not only from Jack Smith, but of Alvin Bragg and from the woman that alleged that Trump had raped her, and on and on and on. The Georgia thing's supposed to happen here in the next day or two, maybe week. And they're just overwhelming Trump with all these legal battles and the fees that go with it. And essentially, because of all this bad news, the Democrats think it's going to peel away some of the independents and peel away, of course, some of those disaffected Democrats that voted for Trump in 2016 and perhaps even in 2020, and essentially get him to win the Republican nomination overwhelmingly against the field, which of course is relatively easy for Trump to do, but then essentially beat him roundly in the general election. Do you think that is the playbook? I mean, that's what I've been hearing. What do you think? What are they trying to do here other than just overwhelm former President Trump?
Well, that's overwhelm is one of the things, and I just have to point out, because people, I've been under pressure in my life. I'm sure you have been under pressure in your life. We all have.
Never in my 21 years of pastoring have I ever been overwhelmed.
Lying is a sin. You know that, right?
Yeah, that's one of my overwhelming problems. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so I cannot think of another human being that could have handled the way he has handled this nonstop onslaught. As a candidate, he's been remarkable. He stands strong. He's unwavering. And that right there causes me to, yes, I look at him and I say, this is the kind of chief executive officer I want for my country, my corporation, the United States of America, which is, basically what we are. And he's a great CEO. He's a great leader. He's a great spokesperson. He fills all the roles, and he does it beautifully. The fact that the left doesn't like it, and they don't, because they cannot get him to break. They just want to break him. And I can't remember exactly what your original question was. You're talking about overwhelming him, making him be the Republican nominee. He was going to be the Republican nominee anyway. I think they believe that if they can get him there, it'll be really, really easy to convince people that are already just listening to their own echo chamber.
Yeah.
The left has everybody on their side. The mainstream media, definitely. That's why I don't even own a television on purpose, because I want to actually find out what was said by listening to that individual and not these little snippets that are said. You read these snippets, even when you're looking at the indictment, some of the snippets from these co-conspirators that they're using to add them to the co-conspirator, box, are things that are complete. You can tell if you can read between the lines, it's completely taken out of context.
Yeah.
Completely taken out of context. So I'm not sure. I'm not privy to the Democrat mind thought process, and I'm really kind of glad that I don't think that way. But I think that we do need to be clever about how we approach it. There are those that are within the Republican establishment that are saying, "Oh, we can't have Trump because this is what's going to happen."
Yeah.
But I don't believe there's any other Republican nominee that could handle the things that he's handled as well as he's handled.
Deborah, can I hold you over
Now,
for 2 more minutes?
You got 2 minutes, you betcha.
Let me hold you over for 2 more minutes right after the break. We're speaking with Deborah Pauly, who is a staff attorney with the Lex Rex Institute. We'll pick back up with her in just a few moments here on Politics in the Pulpit. All right, back here live on KHTS, hometown station, talking with Deborah Pauly, staff attorney with the Lex Rex Institute. We've had a great discussion here about the 6 co-conspirators, which started off our discussion. Then we've kind of gone into the whole Jack Smith prosecutorial situation with President Trump. And I just want to ask Deborah just a couple of quick lightning rod questions, if you could, or lightning round, I should say. Do you think President Donald J. Trump will actually serve prison time?
It would be a really, really sad day in America if that's what happened to someone who is a political opposition. That would be something that I would expect to see in a banana republic, not in a free country, not the United States of America. I do believe that the left would love to see it. The optics of that would serve their purposes. I think there would be great complications because of his status as president and the need to have a security for him. The Secret Service is still, charged with providing him with security, so I'm not quite sure how that would work out. They would have to make special arrangements for a man in his position.
Yeah. Do you think because the former president, is such a vocal individual who just says, things off the fly and is not really hamstrung in the way politicians and former presidents have been, that it's just so much easier for the Democrats to throw all this at him and for a good portion of the society to go, yeah, I think he did that?
You mean because he's not politically correct?
Yes,
he doesn't
because he is not. He doesn't speak with a filter.
Right. The ear candy, the easy stroking that we're all accustomed to coming out of politicians saying, whatever you want to hear, even if they know it's not true and they know they can't deliver. That may be what makes the left think that he's an easier target, but I also think that it's what endears him to those in the public that have been just really hungry for something like that, a little bit of honesty. Sometimes honesty doesn't come, wrapped in a pretty, package. The truth can be very ugly, and the truth can hurt, and he's exposed some real truths about what's been happening in politics in general, certainly in Washington, D.C., that he didn't create the swamp. I'm sure you've heard this. He's exposed the swamp, and that's true, and the swamp is having a fit over it. I like to this is an analogy I've used before. You remember the Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy throws water on the Wicked Witch of the West and she starts melting into the ground.
Yeah.
And she's screaming. That kind of is how I feel about what's happening with the swamp right now, that they've got someone who's thrown a bucket of water on him. It's called daylight. And he's done it, in broad brushstrokes without, yes, you call it a filter, but it just, sometimes this brutal honesty is necessary in order to repair what's broken. You have to recognize first what it is so that you can address it. I think he's going to go down at some point as one of the greatest presidents we've ever had, even if he's not reelected. But I think that there's going to be some positive results. I hope to see that for sure.
If the president ends up maybe taking a plea deal or something like that, and the agreement is, hey, I'm not going to run for office now or again, which of course I don't necessarily want to see as a scenario, but there's a possibility of that. But I want to ask you, Deborah, who do you see out of the 14 or 15 or so that are running, other than former President Trump, who do you see as like an heir apparent or somebody that is closely aligned with the former president that could take his ideas and maybe even expand upon them? Do you see anybody in the current crop? And of course, we know it's not Mike Pence, and we know it's not Doug Burgum.
First of all, I cannot even see President Trump even doing what you're suggesting. I just cannot see it. He's told us not to give up. He's told us to persevere, that we don't give up, never give up. And I just don't think he'll do that. I can't even imagine a scenario where he would do that. I can imagine a scenario where perhaps there are some questions about prosecutorial misconduct. That's a possibility. where there's been, selective prosecution of someone for political purposes. That could happen, and we might have to. That might be a better scenario for us to think about, is looking at whether or not this special prosecutor acted in a way that was legal, and that he was not attempting to sway the jury, which is in this case, the special prosecutor is trying the case in the court of public opinion, which is what this is all about. This is not actually about affecting any kind of justice. This is about trying to, in politics we call it dirty somebody up. They're just trying to dirty him up. And some people are falling for it, but I would say, if anything, more people are inspired by and encouraged by the fact that he is standing up strongly in the face of what's happening. That's how I see this.
Well, Deborah Pauly, thank you for being a voice of common sense and a voice of reason, and also being someone who stands up for the law is king. Staff attorney with the Lex Rex Institute. Deborah Pauly, thank you so much for joining us today on Politics in the Pulpit, and we hope to hear back from you soon, especially as things develop.
Thank you, Pastor Cook. Have a great afternoon.
Have a great day. Well, we're coming to the end of the show here. Hopefully you enjoyed our conversation with Deborah Pauly. I really enjoyed some of her insight. Real quickly here before we get off the show, I'll be on vacation next Wednesday, so I think we'll have hopefully one of our greatest hits that we'll be playing next Wednesday, so hopefully you'll tune in, at least live on radio. Also, I think, can my boy get his mic on right there? One of these moments here where the daddy has a proud daddy moment. My boy Jerry Cook, he's 17 years old. Hopefully at some point he'll be a successful young man. Not to suggest that he's not now. But he is doing board op today for the program. He's doing it all by his lonesome. Of course, he has a wonderful individual named Andrew that's teaching him. But Jerry, say hi.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, that's my boy right there. Can you hear that boyish tone there? That's exactly how I sounded at 17 years old. But you enjoying yourself today, son?
Yes, I am learning a lot. So
yeah, is Andrew like your? He's kind of like
my mentor.
He's your mentor. That's right. You're like Yoda. You know, he's like Yoda, and you're like Luke Skywalker. So
training me.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully this will all work out in the future, and it's very possible that Jerry could be on the team here at KHTS. So Jerry, thanks for doing a good job today.
Yeah. Thank you
All right.
for letting me do this.
Well, hopefully you'll tune in next week. Again, thanks for listening in today on Politics in the Pulpit. We'll catch you in a couple of weeks. And again, if you're going back to school, make sure your kids are safe. And if you're looking for a good school, Lighthouse Christian Academy will be a great option for you. Again, you can catch us at freedomswaybaptistchurch.com. If you're looking for a good church as well, where woke Christianity goes to die, I encourage you to come to Freedom's Way Baptist Church. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.